You ready? You're listening to the Real Pineapple Podcast Network. Good morning, ladies, gentlemen, days, and gays. This is the Real Pineapple. This is your humble host, Hunter, here. Hope you're having a great start to your week. By the time you hear this, it'll be, it's Monday. I'm going to upload it, upload this on the same day. But I'm really happy, technically, to be interviewing this person for the second time because we got cut off last week. But this amazing director from directing Holler back in 2020, which if you have not seen, highly recommend checking it out. You can check it out on pretty much on VOD wherever you get your films. And from her new film Dandelion, I have Nicole Riegel here. Nicole, how you doing this morning?
I'm good. I'm good.
So again, thank you so much for agreeing to talk with me again. I really appreciate it. Last time we talked, we were talking about art because that is such a huge theme for Dandelion. And one thing that I was talking to you about was doing this podcast. I'm in year 10, which is weird to say.
Congratulations.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And the fact now that it's kind of starting to feel like there's a different momentum hitting the podcast after, kind of being like, do I like this or do I want to stop? For like the first 5, 6, 7 years. As a director, um, I actually went back, because I bought it. I went ahead and rewatched Holler, and as I was rewatching it, one of the themes that just really um is so central to that film um is art and survival and being able to just be like being able to actually exist, and not just exist but being able to thrive and be comfortable despite circumstances around you. Can you talk to me about how those themes are reflected in Holler versus art versus the evolution of stealing metal versus making music?
Yeah, I think well for me I see the films as being very similar but different, and that's my goal, is to make a body of work that feels like mine and the same hand behind the wheel, and with you know same themes and preoccupations and voice, but also very different. Like, I don't want to make, you know, a movie about a young woman in the scrap metal trade 5 times, or a young woman in Ohio 5 times. Um, I don't think any filmmaker does. I don't think any great filmmaker has really done that. There's always different, whether you're Paul Thomas Anderson or you're Ken Loach, you're working in different worlds. So there's that. But for me, the progression was really, I mean, this one's unique in that this is the second one of a planned trilogy, and there will be a third. But
Oh, okay.
yeah, there's, like, I call this my Ohio Women Trilogy. And I started out wanting to create a collage of 3 women that charts the dreams and desires of 3 very different working class women in Ohio. And the first one being a young white uh, teenage girl from Jackson, Ohio, my hometown, and 17, 18 years old. And then the third being a young Black woman with music dreams in Cincinnati, Ohio. And then all I'll say about the third is that it's going to be obviously a different city in Ohio, but it's going to be about a much older woman, uh,
Okay.
like maybe I'm thinking 50s, 60s. Uh,
Okay.
and then you see all 3 of those women together, and it charts the different dreams and desires of women from low income, various women from low income backgrounds in Ohio, where I'm from. Um, like I really want to talk about how through that, how just our dreams and our desires and our hopes and the things we want for ourselves are directly impacted by class, by something we're born into. We can control it to a various degree, but we're born into it. And how that impacts us. Do we get a fair shot? And in each of them, and this is just timing and I didn't plan the political layering in any of these films, but the first one I happened to make it during Donald Trump's presidency when he's talking about, education and Betsy DeVos is, in power and how, every I mean, she completely destroyed the education system and
Yes,
and
she did.
how every kid should have an opportunity. But then you're watching Ruth in Holler, and it's like, how? Where's her opportunity? Like, where's her opportunity? She needs like a brother, like her guardian angel, or she's relying on a neighbor, Linda, who believes in her to help her. And she's just, like has all the desire and determination and talent in the world. And it's just rotting in a system that doesn't recognize it or support it. And then in the second, and that then people started talking about that as being a film about a young woman's dreams in Ohio in the era of Trump. And then by the time when I made my second one pretty quickly after my first, and then he had left office. But J.D. Vance in Cincinnati, Ohio, the author of Hillbilly Elegy, was running for Republican seat in Cincinnati, Ohio. And he won. And this was while we were in Cincinnati making Dandelion. And if you
Oh,
listen
wow.
to the early in the film when Mom and Dandelion are in their house, Dandelion's making her a sandwich and she has the TV on. What's playing in the background that a keen uh, ear will catch is it's JD Vance's Vance giving a speech about in Cincinnati about how this country was good to a kid like him. And it's
Um,
like while we're seeing this young Black woman with all the talent and all the determination in the world, and the world that is not helping her, and just the I guess carelessness or ignorance on his part to recognize that even if you did work really, really hard, even if you did come from nothing, you came from nothing as a young white man in America.
yeah.
And
And you're
you
gonna
at
have
least,
more opportunity.
yeah, and I'm not, and you at least just have to acknowledge that. Like it's not saying you don't have to have that opportunity or you need to give it to someone else. Nothing's being taken from you, but at least acknowledge, especially if you're going to be a leader, acknowledge this country was good to a kid like me, but I am a young white man and it's not as great to people who don't look like me. That sentence tagged on would have made all the difference. And so
Agreed.
now what this trilogy is becoming is I don't know who will be in power for the final one. I don't know what the country will look like. And because it's a film about a much older woman in age and time, and we don't see those women on screen, um, you don't see women over 40, 45 on screen. I don't fully know what that third one's going to look like, so I'm in no position to it has to wait because I'm very curious to see it. The first one was during the reign of Donald Trump. The second one was during his loss and the rise of candidates like Mr. Vance. And the third one, I just don't know what's going to happen in the world or what it's going to be, but it will absolutely be in the third one. Um, so I'm nervously awaiting uh, to see
Sure.
what the world looks like and what this film can be. But I know I will certainly have something very strong and potentially controversial and offensive to some to say with it. I just don't know what that is right now.
Okay, so thank you for that, by the way. That was a beautiful answer. And that actually gives me actually ties in perfectly to this. So in doing the podcast, I think it's very I think it's very interesting when you set out with one goal and the goal kind of gets, I don't want to say compromise because that sounds dirty, but the goal evolves, is what I'll say. Like when I set out to do this podcast originally, I was like, I'm just reviewing film. That's it. And then there was a point where I read J.K. Rowling's transphobic manifesto, and I went off the handle. I think I ranted about for like 45 minutes about how terrible she was. And then like while I still obviously review film, the podcast itself has become a little more political as far as things I talk about. So, like when Trump was running originally, I was just like, okay, like I understand lesser two evils, but this man is terrible. Like, and and to your point, making films in this climate, obviously there is evolution based on what you're seeing in front of you. Dandelion and Holler being perfect examples. So how much does the politics around the world influence how you write, and how do you kind of find that balance? Because I think it's like for myself, I'm never gonna be doing like the Daily Show, but at the same time, as a black man, I feel like there are groups that aren't comfortable speaking for themselves. So if I see, if I hear about like the Orlando shooting, I'm gonna talk about it. If I hear about, the shooting in Charlottesville, I'm gonna talk about these things because I feel like I have a responsibility to. As a female director, how do you kind of navigate that aspect creatively?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. It's layered in, and people, for me as a filmmaker, people still want to watch a movie and they want to be entertained. And I am aware that I'm an art house director, and Dandelion has pushed me more into into straddling those lines. I mean, for an independent film, Dandelion has a very wide release for an independent film. Holler was around 55 screens. Dandelion, you're getting close to 500 screens.
Hell yeah.
And so, and I understand why they feel it straddles a commercial world as well. It does make you feel good, and a lot of it's a romance, it's a music film. It leans into these familiar genres and narratives that people already enjoy and make them feel good to go see. But it has controversial things in them. One is this is a movie led by a young Black woman, and that was not the plan when I made it. It's not the plan when I make any movie unless ethnicity is unless it has to be that, like if you're playing MLK, you kind of need to be a Black man to play
Yeah,
MLK,
kind of.
right? But in this film, that wasn't the case. Dandelion could have been played by a young Asian American woman uh in Cincinnati, Ohio. And so, and Asian American women did audition. I heard singing tapes from all sorts of women and met with all sorts of women. But right now, it's played by a young Black woman. There are people who are not going to see the movie because it's played by a young Black woman. Because
Yeah.
anyone who disagrees with me on that, they're not living in the same world that I'm
Yeah.
living.
You're not paying
And
attention.
I would be lying if I said this opening weekend, I didn't have that on my mind
Mm.
because I come from a very conservative state, a very conservative white town of 6,000 people. I live now in Tennessee, in Nashville, Tennessee, and Nashville, Tennessee is very liberal, but you are still in the deep red state of Tennessee. And there are people who call it unconscious bias, call it what you will, but they see even though it's a two-hander and it's a white man and black woman, it's an interracial relationship. You see young black woman, not a young black man, young black woman. So there's two strikes, right? And so
Yeah.
you see her and people think, oh, that's a black movie, that's not for me. And it was very important to me in the marketing of this film. Uh, I don't know that I fully got my way in it, but that this was not called a black musician, but that this was called a
Mm,
female musician or a musician, just a musician. Just take, it's about a musician. Take female and black off because this film really can appeal to everyone. But there's something about when you see a young black woman in a movie, there are people, not everyone, there are people who say, oh, that's not for me. And they're wrong. It is for you. It is for you. And we do see color. We do look at things that way. And I'd be lying if I said that wasn't on my mind, that this is going to somehow impact this film because of the racist society that we live in. Like I would just be lying if I said nobody's going to see that. It's not going to have that problem. It's not going to come up against anything. I didn't maybe I think this is the first time I'm talking about that and saying these words out loud. But on the inside, I'd be lying if on the inside, as we approached opening weekend, it wasn't on my mind that we live in a racist society still, and that's not going away overnight. And we live in a sexist society. And this is where I'm talking
absolutely.
quiet. The film talks about quiet racism, quiet sexism. No one goes and sees this film and says about race and this is about Black Lives Matter. This is about Me Too. No, 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 no. It's about quiet everyday sexism and racism. It's about the chances and the shots you don't get that you don't even know about. It's about someone not picking you because in their mind you're a woman or you're black or you're brown and you'll just never know. It's about those little unconscious biases that affect us every single day, that are maddening, that drive you crazy, um, that you can't do anything about. And it's about walking in a space like when I walk in the Alamo Draft House in downtown LA. Name a movie poster they have up, like they're vintage posters. Find one directed by a woman. I dare you. Unless they've changed
Mm,
it in the past few months, and that's one of my favorite theaters in the world. But when
same.
I walk in movie theaters, I'm always looking at the movie posters. Can't find any with women in the multiplexes. Maybe you'll find one, maybe two, but out of like 30, 40 posters some of these places have up, I don't see any directed by a woman. I see A Quiet Place, like two or three, I forget which one it is, with Lupita Nyong'o on it. I see
Yeah,
Sing, still directed by men, which is fine. I'm not saying it's a male director's fault. I'm just saying when you don't see yourself in a space, it gets in your head. Um,
it
and
definitely does.
when I go to it's a company called Blumhouse.
Yeah.
Great company. When you walk in Blumhouse, it's fantastic office space, by the way. You see all these black and white portraits of directors who they've worked with. The wall's just covered in them. You see Damien Chazelle, you see I'm blanking because they did Whiplash. You see
Oh, crap. I know you're talking
what's his
about
name? The Sinister director, Derek. Anyway, you see all these directors when you walk in that have made, for
Sh Chazelle, right?
yeah, Chazelle, Damien Chazelle. And I love that they honor that. Like, I think that's so beautiful. That's one of the first things you see when you walk in those offices. There's maybe a couple women. I mean, the walls are
Mm,
covered, and it's so cool that they do that. But I remember going in for a meeting, great meeting. And I immediately felt something when I walked in of like, there won't be another meeting, or this is not going to ever amount to anything, no matter how great this meeting is, because I'm looking
mm.
at the walls. And then there's that scene in Dandelion when Dandelion goes in the store and she looks at all these music gods, all these indie rock singers or singer-songwriter folk singers, and it's Elliott Smith, it's Sam Beam, and they're great, they're amazing. These guys, I grew up loving Elliott Smith. Sam Beam,
Yeah,
and Wine's one of my favorites. I love these guys. It's not them. They're not the enemy. It's I'm looking at Dandelion's looking at the walls, and where is she? She's not even in one photo. Like there's no young, and then at the end, the film contrasts that and shows you all these amazing women in music like her, all the other dandelions. That's what I mean by quiet racism and quiet sexism.
And I definitely caught that. So one thing I love about this film is that you're bringing a completely valid, fair criticism to that because I mean, I went off on a huge rant about Nia DaCosta, who I think is an amazing director, and how
Yes.
there have been male directors. I'll use Zack Snyder as an example, who have made like things that have been critically panned, lost money, several films, and people go like keep giving them chances. And then she did the Marvels, which didn't do well because of the writer's strike, and it's like, should she ever get a budget that big again? It's like, y'all, this is what people are talking about when they're talking about sexism. So I
Yeah.
really appreciated the visual representation of that, because I think that I mean, I'll speak for myself. Just when it comes to film criticism, you see so many um white critics, um, you
Huh.
know, uh, uh, um,
You're
and
one
I
of the
still,
few, you are one of the few, Robert Daniels, I believe it's Ebert. Uh, Ebert has another one as well. I do look at that when I'm looking at critics. And first, I went into that thinking, okay, m men are not going to respond to this. It's mostly white male critics. And it's like older ones, or you get the young 20-year-old, white guys who love Quentin Tarantino movies and they love their A24 movies, and that makes up literally the bulk of theater goers, young, like 20
yeah,
something white men. And but what I did find was that I couldn't find disparity there. Yes, there were definitely more white male critics, but I do find between Holler and this, white, like, there are women who don't like my films just as much as men. I couldn't find a disparity there that particular to my films. Lots of men loved Holler, lots of men loved Dandelion. Where I did find the disparity was critics of color. I
mm,
think three critics of color have reviewed Dandelion.
wow,
Where are the critics of color? And
yeah,
when they do, and it doesn't matter if you like the film or not, but you need people writing thoughtfully about the film.
yes,
And only one black critic, it was Robert Daniels. God, I forget, maybe he's not a Ebert, but he is a very big critic. Um, he's the only one who was able to so eloquently discuss the invisibility of blackness and talk about blackness in an eloquent way, in a way that made me realize new things about the film. And that's why you need different perspectives. Like it real criticism isn't a film criticism isn't about it's bad or good, I liked it or not. It's I understand the intent. Maybe this film isn't for me. I understand the intent. Did this filmmaker achieve it or not? And in the world of clickbait, that's hard to get at. But but I can't believe this film is not being reviewed by more black writers. And I get it. There's tons of white men who love this movie and they deeply understand the movie. But you get something special when someone
yeah.
writes about the film and they can even understand Dandelion's existence beyond how I can understand it. And I love reading that. That's why I love Robert Daniels' review so much, is because he has lived a life as a black man that he wrote things that made me reconsider things about my film in a positive way.
So one thing I will say myself is I love where this film I love this film has to say about art, because I personally have definitely felt that, where I'm just like, oh God, am I just putting stuff out into the void? Does anyone like
Yeah.
give a shit? And I think there's that balance between being satisfied in your art regardless of the feedback or the views or whatever term you want to kind of attach to your art and the commercialism behind it. um obviously Dandelion starts off in a more pessimistic place when it comes to her heart at the start of the film versus where she ends up. Did you find writing the script kind of healing in that way from your perspective, like being a director?
Yeah, I really did because it not a lot came my way after Holler. It was a grind. Not a lot. It's not like people are watching the film, loving it, and things are happening for me. They're watching the film, they're loving it, and every film is like I'm making my first film again. I do need to recognize I'm finding my team and I have an incredible crew, and it took years to cobble that together. And I do have more resources now, but it moves in inches for me.
Mhm.
There's not a lot of women out there who are 22-year-old wonderkins, you know? There's not
Yeah,
we're not, the 25-year-olds who just make a film and they break out and it's amazing. Like, yeah, we don't have that. Yeah, we don't have that. That cool. That must be nice. But we don't have that. It's a slow burn. And I know the kinds of films I'm making. I'm not out making horror films because I love horror films, by the way, but we can't just have horror films. Yeah, they make a lot of money. We
yeah,
can't just have horror films, I know I do recognize that the kinds of films I make and how I make films and that it does make things more challenging for me, but I'm not going to make something because I know what will make me lots of money or famous or hot or buzzier or whatever. I'm not going to do that because what do I get out of it? I'm not going to like my work that I made. Like, what do I get out of it? I make other people around me happy. I make them lots of money, but what am I getting? I'm not here to I don't, my job is not to make other people a lot of money. My job is to do my job and create a body of work. That's my job. That's my job. I do factor in those other things significantly. I really do. Um, but and feature film is very different than TV. Um,
yeah.
I have far more interest in me in television and work in television and make money in television than in film. And I don't have any produced television, but I've made two like well-received, critically acclaimed films, and there's nothing because feature film is where the boys club is. That's where the boys club is. The numbers show it. Like the numbers are there. And at one point I have to just move on. I can't spend all day being crippled by it or complaining about it, or then I'm not spending time making my work. But that's what it is.
I feel that because I definitely like see I think the thing that's frustrating for me as a critic is seeing um the buzzword critics where it's like, oh, things have gone woke, and seeing that stuff get, millions of views, and it's like I'm trying to do it the right way. It's like, oh, you're penalized for doing it the right way. Like that sucks. But I think at the end of the day, it's about being able to stand on your art and know and take pride in what you know made, regard like without taking any shortcuts and without selling out what at your core makes you an artist. So I will say, watching this movie, I felt very emotional at the end, especially just because it really made me happy where Dandelion ends up, and I could kind of feel your therapy through the character, and it made me really happy because I really do think that you have incredible work ahead of you. And considering I think you're two for two, I personally can't wait to see what you do moving forward. Um, we are almost at time. So I will just say, Nicole, I cannot thank you enough again for taking the time to talk with me. Um, kind of weird to say, but I'm like really proud of you and I'm really proud of this film.
You,
I've already letterboxed it. I'm gonna be releasing my review today and I will definitely tag you when I do. But
yes.
um I will just say I'll just say artist to artist, please keep this up. Please know that the next thing you see, I am there opening day, opening night. Like I can't wait to see what you come up with. And this was for me like very artistically good for my soul, and this is
But
just a perfect way to start my week. So, again, thank you so much for making the time. If you could please tell people where they can watch Dandelion and where they can find you before we let you get out of here.
yes, thank you so much. It was I love this conversation with you. Just talking artist to artist about art. And that's the heart of the film. Yeah, Dandelion's only in theaters now, nationwide. It's in a lot of theaters. Please go see it. It
Yes,
needs you to put your butt in the seat and go see it. Take your friends, if you know any fellow artists, musicians, especially struggling, aspiring musicians and artists, take them. They will appreciate this film, with gorgeous music by Aaron and Bryce Dessner. So go see the film in theaters now, and you can. It's in art houses and multiplexes, and you can find me on Instagram at Nick Riegel. It's the only social media I have, and it's just
fair.
a space where I talk about movies only and celebrate movies only. That's all that goes on that Instagram. So if you, yeah, you can tag me, you can find me there, and you can have conversations about movies with me there.
All right. And like I said, I'll have my review up later today. Spoiler, it's good. But Nicole, thank you again so much for making the time. I hope this does well. I hope this was a good experience for you. And again, cannot wait to see what you do next. And please take care of yourself. And thanks again.
Thank you so much. You too.
All right, Nicole, you take care.
Bye, Josh.